Alright, today we're doing an informative video on how to field strip your AR-15 for cleaning or for parts replacement or for just general assembly for basically just the bolt carrier, the upper and lower, and the buffer spring and buffer itself. So what we're going to first do is ensure that the weapon is unloaded, right? So drop the magazine out. This weapon was loaded, so it's a good thing that we were safe, and check that it wasn't. Now, to also check that it's not loaded, open the breech and verify on the inside that there is nothing in there and that it won't go off and shoot anybody. But now, to begin the process of the field strip, on the other side of the weapon, right here, you push this pin in to where it kind of goes beneath the metal of the lower. At that point, this side of the pin pokes out and you can pull it. Be careful because it will rotate now that the pin is free, so it now rotates. So this is the takedown pin, and once you have taken out the takedown pin, you can then move to the pivot pin, which is exactly the same format as the takedown pin, and it's right here. I mean, its shape is slightly different, but it does the same thing. Holds the upper to the lower. So push it out, pull it all the way out, like so, and then the upper will be removed from the lower. And that's what the takedown pin and the pivot pin look like all the way out. They won't come out because there's a little detent pin inside there. Set aside the lower for later use. Now, to get the bolt out of here, which is right there for cleaning or whatever else you're doing, go ahead and open the charging handle, and yours might be slightly different, so that the bolt and the charging handle comes out. And at this point in time, you can take the bolt out where the gas key clears charging handle. Set that down for cleaning, and then take the charging handle out, and there will be a little notch that it kind of drops to, and it will come on out that way. So now the charging handle has been removed, and you have your complete upper over here, totally ready for cleaning, where you clean inside here and everything, cleaning the barrel, all that good stuff, in the chamber, get all that clean. There's a gas tube inside here as well that you're going to want to clean up a little bit. Just make sure that the interior of that is totally clean, or as clean as you can get it before whenever it comes time for you to clean your weapon. So we'll go ahead and put that aside as well, and I will show you how to take apart the bolt from the bolt carrier group for further cleaning. So we're going to start with this little cotter pin right here. It's called the firing pin retaining pin, which is right here located on the inside profile of the bolt carrier group. It's basically the only hole on that side of the whole BCG. So we'll pick at it a little bit because there's a little loop on it until it wants to come out. And so see, it's starting to come out, and you can see that little loop on there. Go ahead and take that all the way out. And before you do, I like to kind of have the bolt oriented in this direction, because the firing pin will fall free once that cotter pin comes out. I mean, kind of clean that cotter pin up and you want to clean that at that point. And then here where the firing pin is, right there, it's now free to fall out, so it just comes right out. And then your firing pin, you're going to want to get all super clean and everything. This will be something that's really dirty. It'll get a lot of carbon on it. That's just something that happens. At this point, you can rotate this little cam pin thing to where it's basically perpendicular with the gas key. Push the bolt down, finagling it so it will clear the gas key, and then just pull it straight on out for the bolt cam pin. You're going to want to go ahead and clean that guy too. There's a hole in the center for where the firing pin passes through. At this point, the bolt will spin freely inside the bolt carrier group. Just pull it straight out. And then you're going to want to get all this clean down in there. Other side, there's a hole that goes all the way through. Clean these sides and all that good stuff, and just get that nice and clean. Also within the gas key, you can actually fit a Q-tip in there, kind of jam it in, and then, don't force anything. Don't be overtly aggressive with it, and you'll be okay. Now for this final part, you're going to want to take the extractor off of the bolt itself. I usually use a firing pin for this, to where you you can see there the pin is right here that's holding the extractor onto the bolt. So I usually just push down basically right where that pin is, and then use the firing pin to kind of force it out of there, kind of guide it. Remember, we're not forcing anything, so it is now poking out a little bit on the side to where you can get to it with either your fingers or whatever else. I mean, it's easy enough to just kind of pull on out. And the newer weapon that you have, the harder this process may be. Set that extractor pin or extractor retaining pin aside, because do not lose that. You will render your rifle non-functional if you lose that. At this point in time, the extractor will come off, and there's a little spring. I think now they have O-rings. I've seen them without O-rings before too. Go ahead and clean up the extractor itself. There's a little notch in there to clean, and you can access the interior of the bolt itself where the firing pin comes through, and then on the other side where these gas rings are right here. This part in particular will get very dirty, so go ahead and clean that up as best you can until you're satisfied with it. And so that's all done, and you're in the process of cleaning that. For the final step in the process, what I do is I'll take my charging handle, utilizing this little spot of the charging handle, to take down the buffer. So we're going to remove this little guy from the lower. This is a buffer retaining pin right here. Just push down on that with a charging handle, and the bolt or the buffer should come out with the buffer spring, and then just kind of jiggle and pull at the same time, and then the whole buffer comes out all the way. Sometimes the buffers they won't freely come out of the spring like that. It's no big deal. Just get in there, clean the spring a little bit, and clean inside the buffer tube a little bit. It won't be that dirty because there's not a whole lot of carbon in there. For reassembly of the buffer tube, it's kind of just the exact same way that you took it out, except you won't need to depress this little stopper pin right here. Just line up the spring with the tube, shove it all the way in, and then keep pushing until it's down, and then now retained by the pin. So lower is now done and good. And you can also clean inside your trigger mechanism and that kind of thing. It doesn't get too carbony or anything, but it's probably good practice to do that. Reassembly of the bolt and the bolt carrier group. So we're just going to go backwards on what we did before. Take the extractor, put it into the bolt, while pushing down about where the extractor is, or the extractor retaining pin. You can kind of see right here there's clean hole all the way through it. Go ahead and take your extractor pin and stick that guy back in there. You're gonna have to kind of finagle it around. Don't force anything, obviously. You don't want to be forcing. And the newer the bolt and weapon, the probably more difficult it will be to get it back in. But yeah, just push straight down where the holes are, and then you can push it straight through to get it back to normal. And sometimes if it won't go all the way in and you know it's lined up in the holes, you can use the rear point of the firing pin where the hammer strikes to push that pin back through, again not forcing anything. So at this point we will put the bolt back into the bolt carrier, and we'll spin it to where the extractor is facing the outer face of the bolt. Inside here you can see where that little cam pin hole is going to line up. So sometimes you have to kind of like pull it out slightly to make those holes line up, and drop the cam pin in the same way you took it out, making sure that it clears the gas key, and then at which point in time you can rotate and then just pull it straight back up. So yeah, that part is done. And then here, there's these two gaps that allow the hammer to pass through and hit the actual firing pin spot. Cover these holes with your fingers, and then just drop the firing pin in, point down, and then it will just fall right into place right here. At this point, you will take your firing pin, retaining pin, the little, little guy we took out first, and put it into the side of the bolt that faces the inside of the weapon on this little flared hole. It's the only spot it can go in, and just push. And so the other side is smaller, right, and doesn't kind of walk the pin in. So you might have to twist it a little bit as you're pushing it in all the way, just kind of like rotate it to get it in there, and it will eventually go in. So once it's flush with the bolt face, you know you've done it right. And for reassembly, you want to first take your charging handle and you have to put it in from the lower spot to where it'll work its way up into the notch where this charging handle is supposed to go. But then find a little notch that's in there. If you go not far enough, it won't find that notch. And if you go too far, it won't be in that notch. So you can find it where it kind of snaps in. And then don't push it all the way in. At that point, take your bolt with the bolt pushed all the way forward. Not where it's like this, where you can see the cam pin, but like that, where it's all the way out. Stick the gas key up into the charging handle as you're putting it in the rear of the weapon or rear of the upper, and then just send everything home. And it will click into place, and then you are done and have completed your cleaning and everything, so you can reassemble the upper to the lower, which is just the same way we took it apart. So stick them both together and drive those pivot pin and retaining pin, or I'm sorry, the takedown pin back in. Sometimes this requires a light tap, again, not forcing anything to make sure you don't break anything. But yeah, and then to make sure that you put everything together right, perform a functions check. It is on safety, pull the trigger, nothing happens. Rotate to fire, and the hammer falls. So we know that it's working at this point. Cycle reaction, so you can put it back on safety, and I always make it a habit to close my dust cover. And that's it.